All right, picture this with me. Phil Spencer comes out, does some interview or some challenge or something, and puts him in a position where he's all smiles, unassuming, he's wearing a t-shirt, and he's going to get a bucket of water and ice dumped on him for some cause. This is the kind of guy that he is. However, this is what many people perceive to be Phil Spencer, and so when they analyze and look at Xbox, they see an unassuming man that is very open with his public appearance. He is somewhat casual and takes on the persona of a gamer. They don't know that on the other side is what I call dark Phil. This is Phil Spencer when he's in the studios making plans to take over the gaming industry. And so he walks into the gaming industry and somebody from, say, Coalition comes and said, hey, Boss Phil, we need some money to make games. And Boss Phil's like, well, go down to finance, get a check from Game Pass funds. And then finance is like, well, we already gave them a check from Game Pass funds, Dark Phil. And Phil's like, all right, do you have a PlayStation, development kit? And they're like, yes, boss, we have a PlayStation development kit. We probably got one from the guys at Mojang. All right, make a PlayStation port. And so they open up a bank account. And Dark Phil basically finds a way for these guys to take a game that they already have and pretty much flip it into a brand new launchable and send it over to PlayStation. And guess what? That particular request is now fulfilled. The studio now has access to cash, has access to money that they need to go ahead and make their games. And believe you me, they can stay sustained in their own efforts. An audience member is accusing me of saying that I'm talking about PlayStation needing money, yet I never talk about Xbox needing money. And other people in the comment section was like, whoa, 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 whoa. He's always constantly talking about how Xbox needs money and Xbox is taking their games to other platforms, talking about no red lines, talking about how I hate exclusivity and I want Xbox to go farm money from anywhere. Why would anybody say that? Well, I think what's going on now is the bubble is bursting. A lot of people have thought that PlayStation was kind of like, invincible. No company is. And I've said this before. Xbox, for many of their progression that they're making right now, or I guess I'll say for the extent of the progression that they have right now in terms of the gaming industry, they can blow it. Phil Spencer may not be there and somebody else may take the reins and they may install greed.exe into their brains and they lose their minds and then they go ahead and tank all this progress that he's made. So this is not something that has to be taken lightly when it comes down to it. This is something that has to be looked at very seriously. But the reality that anybody would ever say that Xbox doesn't need money is kind of weird because this is a company that maintained under its banner, or I guess I'll say this is a company that's under the banner of a multi-trillion-dollar company that is operated in a way that wants to constantly find ways to farm dough. And they've now taken that approach into gaming. And believe you me, everybody else is basically going to take the back seat and watch them cook because they were the first to run into this particular headwind against the resistance of the media, against the resistance of the fanboydom, against the resistance of the common talk in the marketplace. And now they're making waves. So Xbox needs money, always will need money to basically go ahead and fund its studios. And guess what the difference is between Xbox then and now is they're no longer pretending that they need money. They're admitting it and they're acting on it. You see, they started out about 8 years ago to kind of slow walk it in. This is when they took their games, and I'm going to have to make it, again, this person said, I don't talk about this stuff. And I'm like, guys, those of you who've been on the VG Fight School channel, you know the Steam best list. I mean, you guys know this. This is the secret sauce that Dark Phil used to keep Xbox Studios alive and afloat. I mean, tell me when your console where you sell your software is getting bludgeoned, but somehow you make it through that generation, you keep majority of your studios intact, and then you launch the next generation. Now, people could say, well, it's Microsoft's bank account. People could say all kinds of stuff. However, why were those Xbox games showing up and grossing top dollar on Steam if it was only based on Microsoft's bank account? Well, that argument makes no sense, seeing as these games were making money for their individual studios as they were putting the games on here for people to play. So Xbox, recognizing that in the time that they needed the most important thing, which is revenue for a business, not console sales, not hardware sales, they were able to go ahead and find it by extending their reach to gamers that were already out there, already had hardware, and could access their games. So what did they do this generation? They rolled into this generation. They got more content. They looked at the way things were going. Their hardware was not selling. And they still realized we still need money. So what did they do? They duplicated the exact same process. This is why I've always been for Xbox to take their games to PlayStation, because I really wanted to see how PlayStation users were going to respond to Xbox pretty much having their games on there. And I could never predict that this would be the outcome. If you had asked me and said, hey, what do you think these Xbox games will look like? I'd have said, well, we need to wait and see, because all I heard about Starfield was that Starfield was a trash game from a lot of PlayStation fanboys. Now, there are people who played it within the Xbox ecosystem, but some never touched it, because when I asked them, so what about Starfield did you think was bad? Well, I watched a guy on YouTube say A, B, C, D, E, F, G. None of them took the time to go try it out, but they had expert opinions on the game. I said, okay, a game being good or a game being bad is subjective. You could think a game is bad. I could think a game is good. I mean, obviously, this is where we are. You watch most of my videos and you can't stop seeing Gotham Knights footage on there, right? I mean, we all know what each other thinks about it, but that's a subjective nature of the way video games resonate with people. But in this particular regard, where gamers have not only been buying these Xbox games in droves, but buying them to the point that they're moving up the pre-order charts and also moving up the new games and top games charts, is one that I did not expect to see. And so Xbox duplicating the process from when it used to farm millions of dollars from Steam users without selling them a simple console, and moving that particular business, strategy to PlayStation, was one that a lot of console fans did not see in their bingo cards. It took them by storm. It surprised a lot of people. Some people are still right now debating that Phil said only 4 games. Now it's more games, not knowing that they've just converted your console into basically an Xbox game selling machine. So while you talk about the only 4 games conversation, whether it's true, whether it's a lie, whether it's in context, whether it's not, I'm interested in the fact that Xbox got away clean with money from PC gamers' hands. In fact, the people who actually hate or despised Xbox the most were majority of the PC players who did not like the Microsoft Live gaming strategy that they tried to implement from back in the day and were wary of them. And also, many of these same PC gamers were not fans of the console, right? But once the game came their way on their favorite platform, they put all that aside and played a game. So the exact same thing is happening here. Xbox already recognized it. Now here's the meat and the potatoes. There's a rumor going around whether or not PlayStation is going to put its games on Xbox. Ladies and gentlemen, do they look like they have an option? I'm not saying they will, but how are they going to sustain their business if they don't get the most important thing, which is revenue? What are they going to do? Repackage the game and sell the game again to you? If that's a viable strategy for them, then they're going to continue to do it. However, as Darkfield basically prescribed to his person there at the coalition that came to him and said, boss, we need money, Xbox is going to continue to move those games to PlayStation, opening new bank accounts for their studios over there so that their studios have a direct stream of revenue, a direct customer base, and they make more money because they need the money. They're just not pretending that they don't need the money anymore. I think that's the difference between the Xbox that we have right now and PlayStation. Thanks for watching the video. Talk to me in the comment section. Peace out.